how how uh, how incubators support social entrepreneurship, because there's not much literature about it, and especially in Switzerland, basically none.
Hmm.
It's There's only literature about business incubation in general. So I gonna find out kind of how social entrepreneurship is supported by incubators and why that's important.
Sure, makes
Okay,
sense.
perfect. So what else I have to tell you? Well, if you don't want to answer any questions or something, just tell me. That's no problem.
Okay.
So how long do you have time?
I've got an hour. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we don't have to rush anything.
Yeah.
So I would like to start with maybe a personal question. So what is your role in the company, and why do you work for Willgrow?
So I'm an investment manager here, and essentially that means I do everything from looking for pipeline to the diligence process to actually working with the entrepreneurs after we bring them on board. We do very active portfolio management, so kind of throughout the life cycle of the enterprises, work with them. And I work here because I think that markets make a lot of sense, and that they can serve to solve a lot of the problems that the poor face, but they need to be harnessed correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And India is really one of the uh, biggest, most evolved ecosystems for social enterprises,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think the ability to work with some, and they also face a lot of really big problems that are therefore really scalable, business opportunities, and so the opportunity to work here and kind of work with some of those models has been really educational for me, and I think also very gratifying to see the impact that the businesses uh, are and will create.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you tell me, you're from the United States originally, right?
Hmm.
So when did you go to India, and why did you choose to go to India?
So I've been in India for about 3.5 years now, a little bit more. Um, and I chose to go to India. I think partly partly what I just said in terms of
Mm-hmm.
seeing big problems to solve here, and the ability to address a lot of those with social enterprise. I think to me the problems that social enterprise is solving, for instance, in the U.S., are not as compelling as some of the problems we see here. Um, and so, you really the impact's much more visible here,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's exciting. I think also, um, from a very selfish standpoint, I see the global economy likely being driven by growth here,
Mm-hmm.
over my professional lifetime. Not just India, but largely emerging markets and things.
Okay.
And I think understanding those is a great asset to have as a professional. As I keep going. So it was kind of, I think, in some senses, I came here as an MBA as the Borders advisor 4 years ago for a 5-month assignment, and didn't necessarily know I would be here.
Mm-hmm.
So India kind of chose me. Um, but yeah, I think I've stayed here because the opportunities for learning are immense in the entrepreneurial ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
and the social entrepreneurial ecosystems here are very vibrant and active. So it's been a great place to be.
Perfect. Thank you. So then, in general about incubation, like you work in a social entrepreneurship incubator, but in general, why is an incubator important, in your point of view, to support startups?
Yeah, I think incubators serve a purpose of essentially um, helping companies. All startups make mistakes. Um, Incubators help startups make um, more intelligent mistakes, um, and they also help them not repeat. I think a lot of that comes from entrepreneurs not repeating um, stupid mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
mistakes that other enterprises have made, and they also help them just kind of take care of some of the basic, um, you know, legal, accounting, compliance, things like that. They
Mm-hmm.
can, provide support in terms of some of the basics, so that enterprises don't waste time on that.
Mm-hmm.
I end up working with a lot of science-based incubators in my work, and they're trying to help scientists kind of break out of academia in the lab and start to you know get their products into the market. I think they provide a really critical role in terms of providing a bridge to the business side of things from the science side in that specific instance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to ask you some questions about will grow, of course.
Hmm.
So first, I want to ask about the selection process or the selection criteria. I found some stuff online, of course, but maybe you could quickly explain how do you select social entrepreneurs into your portfolio? Like what is important? What do they need to bring with them? Is it the idea, the team? What do you look at there?
Yeah, so I think we start with a high level question, which is, does this business create impact and have impact at its core? And we define impact as improving the lives of India's poor. So we start with that filter, um, and then we also look at um, things that they have to be scalable.
Mm-hmm.
Which we define as the ability to reach 1 million people within 5 years of reaching the market. Um, Obviously,
Okay.
more is better, but that's kind of the baseline. If it's, I mean, for instance, things like rare diseases don't always fill that checkbox for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we uh, we then look at, and this varies a little bit across sectors.
Mm-hmm.
So we work across healthcare, education, and agribusiness.
Yes.
I work mostly within healthcare,
Okay.
um, and um, we in education, the businesses tend to be slightly more developed. In agri, they're somewhere in the middle, and in
Mm-hmm.
med tech, which is what we do within healthcare, they tend to be very early stage.
Okay.
So we're looking for, the team is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we want a team that we think is capable of executing the business opportunity that we're looking at. So we're looking for relevant experience. We often end up, um, supporting single co-founders, though we have a strong preference for a team to be in place.
Okay.
Um, but we often do end up supporting single co-founders. So then we're looking for people that recognize their strengths and weaknesses and are open to bringing co-founders in,
Okay.
and also people we think will be capable of building a strong team about them, whether they have the co-founder tag or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're looking for people who have, I mentioned we're looking for big problems.
Mm-hmm.
Has the like, regardless of what our diligence says, has the entrepreneur actually understood the problem well?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, have they also understood the real market needs in terms of what the solution needs to provide? Have they understood the customer requirements well, basically? So we're looking for those two pieces to be clear in the entrepreneur's head.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're also, I guess, the final piece would be, kind of looking at um, especially in medtech, the technical aspect of, is the product there and is there strong protectable IP?
Yeah.
And then a last piece is that we're always looking for is the model downstream investable? That's one of our primary metrics of success is can this entrepreneur go raise further impact venture money? Um, and so we, those are kind of the key criteria.
Mm-hmm.
With like the med tech side of things, they often come to us with um, proof of science. They've proven their concept in a lab, but they haven't even necessarily created a POC.
Mm-hmm.
With education, we typically like to see a little bit more of a pilot that's happened because there is an ability to develop those models a lot cheaper, and then come to us with a little more de-risking that's happened. Um, Whereas in medtech, because we do work very early and the ticket size that we do,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have to we end up working at an extremely early stage. So that's essentially it. And so as our selection process, we essentially speak with external experts that we've developed a pool of, do our own research, and then determine if, kind of outline the positives and risks of a potential investment. And then we, kind of make it, our investment committee makes a decision based on a recommendation, whether we should move forward or not.
Okay, perfect. So do the startups also have to give you different documents such as business plan or and
Uh, yeah, so we have a pretty detailed questionnaire that we ask them to fill out.
okay.
We typically have, they will submit a pitch deck. At the
Mm-hmm.
stage we work, a lot of the things that go into a really detailed business plan are, especially in the medtech side, are essentially made up. Um, and so there's so many assumptions in there that the document loses a lot of its value. So we typically work through a combination of our questionnaire and the pitch deck that we ask them to create.
Okay.
We do use the business model canvas as part of that
Yeah.
typically, and then but it's intended to be fairly fluid. Um,
Okay.
and then basic incorporation documents so that we understand that some of those legal requirements are taken care of.
Okay. Can you tell me how many applications you get, I don't know, in a year or something?
Yeah, I think I would have to check with one of my colleagues, but it's like within healthcare, I'd say we see um, so yeah, that number is a little bit tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So we receive a certain number of applications. We also and we've actually seen inbound applications reduce a fair amount. Um, where I would say, like within the healthcare sector alone, we probably see about 100 businesses a year. Now,
Okay.
a lot of those aren't applications; they're ones that we meet people, we get our email referral, we get
Okay.
we meet somebody at a business plan competition, whatever.
Yeah.
So, we screen just within healthcare about 100 businesses a year. Like I said, very few. Um, a lot fewer than we used to see incoming applications, and very little quality within those. So,
Okay. Do you have an explanation for that? Or is it
no,
a general up and down or
no. I mean, I think that's been an ongoing trend that we're seeing a lot less incoming applications over the last year or so,
okay.
and it's been. So I think we've actually been seeing more and better companies
Mm-hmm.
overall. It's just that we haven't seen them going through that mechanism as often. Which is actually good. It's better when people come to you through references and things like that. So
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So then you offer some business support, you offer consulting, mentoring, funding, legal aspects. Like, can you tell me a bit about your business support on how do you support the startups in the time they're in your portfolio?
yeah, so we do offer funding, which is basically um, typically on the order of about 30 to $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we work with most of the businesses, particularly on the med tech side, anywhere between 2 and 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
because the development and validation cycles are quite long. Um, and then, I think the biggest value add that we bring in is a mixture of our hands-on portfolio management. I spend at least an hour a week with each of my companies, and that's the minimum. It's typically, that plus say another half day a month,
Mm-hmm.
spread across a couple longer meetings to work on specific issues. Um, and we also bring in, we have a partner in each sector. In case of healthcare, there's our CTO, and he would spend time with the entrepreneurs, working on product development, working on guiding that process and making sure it's efficient. And then we also bring in mentors with significant sector expertise,
Mm-hmm.
to guide them in product development, in thinking about their validation cycle, and thinking about um, their go-to-market strategy, et cetera. And so, essentially through that, we do a process on roughly a monthly, or a quarterly basis called a diagnostic panel, which is kind of like a board meeting where we bring a few of these mentors together, and spend roughly a day working through a bunch of issues, course correcting, and then providing a roadmap for the business over the coming months. And then the role between those board meetings really falls on um, some on the mentors, and then also on the portfolio manager and the lead partner to provide most of the kind of day-to-day support to the business.
Mm-hmm. And you also have a working space where all the startups work together or
We
next to each
do
other.
have some startups working out of our office in Chennai.
Mm-hmm.
We primarily actually are a virtual incubator. Um, you know,
Oh, okay.
we so we we work with businesses throughout India, though we do have a lot of businesses in Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
What we've essentially seen is that, so first of all, we can't be everywhere in India, and second of all, there are enough other incubators that have great space, great facilities. In the case of medical product development, they have all the lab space and everything that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of need to replicate that. There's, I'd say, almost a surplus of incubation space in India, especially in places like Bangalore. What there is a lack of is people that understand, the business side, and particularly, social business side of things. So, and physical product development from a business perspective. And so that's kind of where we've uh, made our niche, is plugging that gap.
Okay, perfect. So then, until when do you support the startups with all these aspects that you mentioned? And when do you say, you said 2 to 4 years, but what is the point where you say now you're not part of Wilgrow anymore or you should go on?
So there's a few metrics that we use there. One is, looking at, yeah, is a company, we have a series of metrics that we look at, and we say, has the company grown up? Is our support relevant anymore? And so we look at, has the team grown? Is the product stable? Have they figured out their business model and they're starting to kind of scale up? Are they well funded? Are, all their governance pieces in place?
Mm-hmm.
One proxy for that is, have they raised follow-on funding from, a larger impact investor? A lot of times that's a pretty clear signal that they've grown up in many ways, and that our support is becoming less relevant.
Yeah.
So that's one of our big goals, is to get them to that point. And if they achieve that, it's definitely an opportunity for us to kind of evaluate and see if we're still relevant or not.
Yeah. Okay. So, in terms of network, I think that's one very important point for startups to get access to a big network, to investors or research institutions or potential business partners, whatever. What do you do there?
Yeah, so we have we've been doing this for quite a while, and so we've developed a network through the organization and through the people who work here, that is pretty broad in terms of um, the different organizations and people we need to be in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we've seen over the last, so about 2 years ago, we basically switched to a sector-focused model, where the team is organized by the three sectors I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've seen is that a lot of the partnerships are sector-specific. Um, Different investors are focused in different sectors. Partner research institutions or other incubators are sector specific. A lot of the pipeline sources or go-to-market partners are sector specific. So each
Okay.
team has essentially taken some time to build out that network.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we've been specifically, I think one of the focuses has been to take those relationships and grow them from an individual to organization level relationships and to formalize them.
Okay. And I saw that you have this what is it called, unconvention or something, where over the country you have events.
Hmm.
Is that a big
Yeah,
part of?
yeah. So that's essentially, that's we do that a lot in collaboration with our partners.
Mhm.
But that is mostly focused on sourcing of opportunities for us.
Okay.
Um, and looking at how there's two parallel goals of that. One is to spread awareness of what social enterprise is and inspire people to pursue um, you know that path.
Mhm.
Um, and we've seen that a lot of people are relatively knowledgeable now. The concept is getting out there, especially in the larger cities in India.
Mhm.
Um, and so the focus now is really on how can we bring out some of the best new ideas in social enterprise, and consider them for incubation support or connect them with other impact investors or incubators who are a better fit for um, supporting that enterprise.
Okay.
So that's a big piece of what that's about.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me what social entrepreneurship is for you, means for you, or what is a social entrepreneur for you personally and for Wilgrow, or if that's the same, it's the same. If not, then.
Sure. So I think of social entrepreneurs as people that are looking to build scalable models
Mhm.
that can um, you know uh, improve the lives of the world's poor, basically. Um, I think there's a pretty close intersection with what Vilgro looks at. We do only look at for-profits. I think there certainly is a place for nonprofit models which may, uh, you know, have uh, the ability to more or less sustain themselves, but not necessarily turn a profit. There are certainly problems that are better solved by nonprofits, and some of those can be scalable.
Mhm.
Um, and I think Vilgro also uh, shares that assessment. Um, we just have focus, for Vilgro, we only work with for-profit social entrepreneurs
Mhm.
because we've seen that as our niche. Um, and we've seen that our skill set is better suited to supporting those entrepreneurs. So we're looking, like we said, we worked previously with grassroots innovators,
Mm-hmm.
people that are solving problems at the village level.
Yes.
Um, and where we struggled was that a lot of those didn't reach scale,
Yeah.
and so we've shifted away from really pursuing that path. Um, we still see value in those, but for us, the fairly tight definition is that this person can reach 1 million people, touch 1 million lives
Mm-hmm.
within 5 years of getting their business into the market, and solve a real problem for India's poor. So that's essentially, how Vilgro looks at it.
Okay. So if you compare like general commercial entrepreneurs with social entrepreneurs, and what do you think are challenges for social entrepreneurs that are more difficult maybe in the early days where you support them?
Sure. So, I think, if I look at especially the medtech ecosystem, I think the where I work on a daily basis, that's very similar. The product development challenges are similar. Maybe, you could say that within our space, there's a little bit more cost pressure. There's a little bit more narrow window that the entrepreneurs kind of have to fit their value proposition
Mm-hmm.
and their, their product development into. So that's at the early stage. I think a lot of where we see the challenges of social entrepreneurs being particularly unique is in market adoption
Mm-hmm.
once they're getting their products into the market. And, I think there's a couple factors that play into that. So if you look at the private market, you're looking at very cost sensitive um, markets, people that are um, unlikely to take a bet on something. They want to see something that's proven. And so we've seen across sectors that market adoption is slow, and that's where the support of an incubator, which I think by definition is a little bit more patient than an investor or an accelerator,
Mm-hmm.
that patience is critical to let the entrepreneurs try different business models, to try different value propositions, product configurations, whatever it is, to try to crack the market and see if there's a way to make it work. Um, so there's that piece of it. It's just finding the right value proposition and getting that growth in the business. The other piece that I think is particularly challenging for social entrepreneurs is that there's a lot of interaction with the government as a payer.
Okay.
Um, Especially for instance in healthcare in India, that's their primary provider for India's poor. And so, if you're looking at getting products into the government system, that takes more time. It's a very challenging task because you're looking, if you get there, you're looking at very large orders, but getting there takes a long time and it's a complex process. And so, we see that just launching the product isn't enough to really to create that impact. You need to have somebody who's willing to take the long journey of taking the time to crack the government system with you. And that crosses over from healthcare into agribusiness. There's heavy subsidization of agricultural implements and inputs and things like that. And education is also challenging.
Yeah.
In the same way, I mean, there are opportunities to work within the government school system, and those offer similar challenges of government procurement um, that require somebody that has some experience. I think the incubator can shortcut some of the typical challenges of working with the government, or at least provide some guidance there, and also just be patient to wait it out until the company manages to crack that.
Oh, okay. Do you think there's other like aspects specifically challenging in India compared to maybe the United States or a more developed market where you come in and help the startups?
Um, yeah, I think, there's a few things. So one is that market piece. If you look at India as a market, it's huge, but it's very fragmented. If you look at almost um, all the sectors that we work in, it's very challenging to actually reach those markets in terms of even if you crack the government system, it's still the procurement is actually still a state level decision in healthcare. So you have to go sell to each state government. Whereas the healthcare system in the U.S. is a little less fragmented. It's easier to sell to some of these large hospital organizations and things like that, and then the smaller ones will follow. Um, I think the other thing that we've seen in terms of the product development side is that um, you know there's a fairly good amount of good engineering talent here. The facilities aren't necessarily always there. We've seen entrepreneurs really struggle with component availability and prototyping facilities, things like that, and with vendors that operate on a reasonable time frame. So we've seen where the prototyping can take and product development can take a lot longer just because there aren't a lot of good vendors in place that are capable of doing that prototyping scale production.
Okay. Thank you. So then I mean, how do you as Wilgrow, you get the finance from your non-profit, right? Hello?
Yes,
Ah,
yes, yes,
sorry.
we are.
Yeah. So you get finance from investors and you also invest in startups. What is it that you want in return or get in return, or is it just the social impact, or is there also like financial aspects where you get something back?
Yeah, so Billgrow, as itself, is a nonprofit. We take grant money from a few different donors, mostly outside of India,
Mm-hmm.
and we work with companies, and our primary goal is the social impact. Now we've over the last few years, we've made a significant effort. There is a part of the Indian regulations that because we are an accredited incubator, we're allowed to make equity investments in companies only with domestic funds.
Okay.
And so we've made a concerted effort over the last few years to find more domestic funds so that we can take equity investments into some of those organizations or the companies that we're supporting in an effort to make ourselves more sustainable. Um, so just so the way that works is essentially we're allowed to make these investments, but the stipulation is that all the returns basically have to be put into investing in more companies. So there would never be any financial benefit for us.
Okay.
It would just give us a larger investment budget, basically, to go look at more companies. So yeah, it's essentially there's no financial incentive. It's only the impact return that we're looking at. We do, when we're evaluating companies, we look closely at the financial scalability of the company and really think about it as if we were making an investment.
Okay. Okay. So Willgrow is like quite an old incubator and quite successful. So can you tell me, in your point of view, what makes Willgrow successful or what makes it different to other incubators maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've learned a lot over the last 15 years, and um, it's essentially boils down to I think being very in touch with you know the needs and focusing in on making sure we're selecting companies that really solve those needs. Um, and also, a lot of attention to detail in terms of, working hands-on with the companies, and making sure that we, actually do spend the time that we say we do with the companies and help them grow. I think that's, it's been kind of that a very careful selection process, and then, also. I think our model has evolved significantly. We've learned a lot, and we always are trying to improve our model,
Hmm.
but really focusing on how we can add the most value to the companies. Always looking to help them scale, and then getting them out into the market, improving things as quickly as possible.
Perfect, thank you. And if we look a bit into the future, like what do you think will grow, or in general, social entrepreneurship, or even social entrepreneurship incubation? Like where does it go? Do you think it will grow more? There will be more initiatives, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it will. I think there's increasing number of social entrepreneurs here. There's a steady stream of challenges in a country as big as India, and I think we're seeing a lot of people exploring new spaces like housing and areas that we aren't necessarily looking in, but people are looking for other niches where there is a need to support entrepreneurs, and there are still big problems to solve. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the space will continue to grow, and the models will probably evolve a little bit over time.
Okay, perfect. So I think that that's all from my side. Do
Okay.
you do you want to add anything, or I mean, feel free.
Yeah, no, I think you covered most of the topics that I think are relevant. So
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. So I have another question. Um,
Hmm.
Ideally, I would also ask some questions to a startup to see
Hmm.
kind of the other side of the story.
Hmm.
And I want to ask you if you can provide me a name or a contact from one of your startups that will grow, that maybe can answer me some questions via email or phone, or if you can give me an email or name or something, that would be perfect.
Sure, yeah. What I'll do is just check with a couple entrepreneurs first, and then assuming that they're okay, I'll connect you on email.
That would be perfect. Thank you very much. And also, can you please send me back the consent form so
Mm.
I have that
Yeah,
signature, and
yeah, no problem.
otherwise that's it. And thank you very very much. It's extremely helpful for me.
Yeah,
And thank you for your time. I know that you're always busy probably, so thank you very much.
yeah, no problem. Happy to help, and best of luck with the rest of your research.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Bye,
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah,
Thank you.
bye.